Well, hello there, explorers, fellow adventurers. Welcome to Adventurous Spirits. This is a weekly musical podcast to help us reclaim some excitement and some magic in everyday life. So if that is something you're looking for, you are in the right place, my friend. I'm your host, Cortney Matz, and I will be here to serenade you. I'll tell you some of my stories. I invite you to tell me yours, whether live here in the chat on YouTube or in comments and reviews on iTunes and CastBox and wherever you happen to be listening. This is a conversation, both for those who are currently enjoying an adventurous lifestyle and for those who want to crank it up a notch. Could use a little more inspiration for adventure. And we all get there. We all get in those spaces because change comes to all. Because, you know, every personal journey of growth needs a soundtrack. And so rather than having to go find those songs on your own, I'm hoping to help you out and put something together here between all of us who are live and those of us who are tuning in at other times. This month we have been talking about art discovery. Discovering new types of art and artists, new pieces of art that maybe you didn't have in your life before, which is its own kind of special adventure of the mind and heart. And by art, I just mean anything that is appealing and delightful to you. It could be culinary art, it could be visual art, could be musical art, could be, what are all the types? Architecture, we've been talking about architecture over on the Facebook group. We have a Facebook group, by the way. It's also called Adventurous Spirits. Facebook.com/group/Adventurous Spirits. Come and join us. Join the conversation. I would love to know what types of art you have been discovering lately, or where you would like to explore deeper. I mean, poetry alone is a deep, deep well. Music is a deep well. You can go modern, you can go historical. I would really like to have a good resource for discovering music history. I feel like I used to be pretty on top of it with film. I was going through the American Film Institute Top 100 list, and that was helping me find movies that had been made over the years that really influenced the whole way that people make movies. And of course that list gets updated all the time because we're always making new movies. And I haven't looked into whether the same thing exists for music. I bet it does. I'll have to look that up after this. I just thought of it now. But one of my favorite things to do is to just pick an artist. Back when they used to have listening stations at the bookstore, probably some bookstores do, but I used to go to Barnes & Noble in my neighborhood growing up, and they had a place where you could just go plug in your headphones and choose whatever looked appealing in their list and listen to at least a minute of each track. And I know you can do that on Amazon now, but it's just not quite the same, you know. As when you just kind of have the leisure to sit there and skip through everything, to look at the album art, to look at the reviews, and just listen, just to be still and listen. I still do that on occasion at the library. I'll go and get a CD from an artist that I want to learn more about, and just listen to the whole CD. Do you still listen to music without doing anything else? Music is easy to have on in the background, which is also a wonderful attribute. But, as I'm talking about this, you can see why it's such a huge topic, because art is everywhere. We see it, smell it, hear it, watch it, engage with it, share it with one another, talk about it with others. I mean, how many long conversations and how many bonding experiences have you had with a new friend where you realize you both love the same TV show from the 90s or something like that? This first song that I have for you is about a slightly different type of art. But as we're thinking about cultural influences today, you can't stay away from the topic of fashions and fads. And what's a better way to illustrate a fashion style than wallpaper? Loo la la loo la la loo la loo, loo la la loo la la loo la loo, loo la la loo la la loo la loo, loo la la loo la la loo la loo. Today I found a crack in the wall of my bedroom. It wasn't very long, but I could see through layers of wallpaper down to the plaster. I picked the edge and pulled off a shred, couldn't help it. The shred became a window to reveal orange zebras on a field of green. Maybe this was a kid's bedroom at one point in time. What could it mean? Oh, wallpaper, wallpaper, stories unfold. What's under this wallpaper that's 10 years old? Ooh la la loo la la loo la loo, ooh la la loo la la loo la loo, loo la la loo la la loo la loo, loo la la loo la la loo la loo. Well, now I've done it, off comes the next piece of paper. Let's see what's under here. Flowers and cream, a mid-80s dream. Because it belonged to a young urban professional who dreamed of romance. I've got an itch on my eye. How inconvenient. Oh, man. Oh, wallpaper, wallpaper, stories unfold. What's under this wallpaper that's 20 years old, 30 years old, 45, 59, down through the layers, down through the decades, stories on stories, memories fade. How have they lived here? When did they leave here? Somehow the mystery remains. What happens next? Sometime, something else. Now I'm at the base of the wall, stripped and peeled back. A halo all around like rings of a tree, framing a handwritten scroll. Martha, age 15, 1953. And if you're reading this, get out of my room. Ooh la la loo la la loo la loo, ooh la la loo la la loo la loo, ooh la la loo la la loo la loo, ooh la la loo la la loo la loo, ooh la la loo la la loo la loo. Have you ever tried pulling off a strip of wallpaper and found another wallpaper underneath it. I want to shout out to my friend Yasi Mesva for inspiring that song. She was doing an Instagram live stream from her room in Oregon and playing music, and she just kind of commented on the wallpaper and what might be underneath it. And just the suggestion honestly stuck with me, and I found it fascinating. So, you know, whenever we're around one another, you just never know something you'll say that will wind up in a song. So let's check in with the chat. Are you a fan of any particular style or fad? Not necessarily wallpaper, but from travels, I think sometimes we bring back souvenirs and items that we like that are different from what we've seen where we live. And that's just an established way of doing business with one another. That people will visit our country or our town and take something away with them that they bought there, and I will visit your town or your country and find something there that I want to keep. And that is also something that brings us together, because then we get to tell people about it. And you may hear about my spiffy scarf that a friend brought me from Israel and say, oh, I want to go to Israel and see how they create art there. Or you may be someone who travels to South Africa and finds a cool bag made by local indigenous people who make cool bags based on their own history and culture, and you bring it back here to where you live. And then people see it and say, I love that bag. I want to travel to that place where those bags are made. I want to meet those people. I want to find out how they live and what they think about. And then, you know, we have these new ideas of what you can do with a bag or with a scarf or with a pattern, with a color combination. And it influences what we then choose to either use or create or talk about. Which I think is really interesting. I think it's beautiful, honestly. I think it's part of our global world now that we can share across nations, across hemispheres, across historical boundaries, against even cultural boundaries. How many of us understand good sushi now because there is a long historic tradition of making sushi that people have passed down their skills and their tools over decades and centuries. Let's see. Oh, Steve is here. Hello, Steve. Steve says, my tradition when traveling is to bring back as many different kinds of jam as I can reasonably carry, often a lot of cool, exotic, and locally made stuff. That's a great tradition, Steve. Do you wind up sharing your jam with anybody? And what would you say is one of the more exotic flavors that you found? Anything that just sounded like, this can't work. This can't work as a jam. He says, I had a friend who went to South Africa years ago and brought back bowls and doormats made from tightly wound plastic bags. Ever since, I've wanted to go to South Africa. Yeah. That sounds like good use of recycled plastics. Which reminds me of an event that I had during lockdown, COVID lockdown, and I invited people to hop on Zoom and tell stories about something that they have or something that they brought back from a trip and where they found it and what they like about it. And Steve was there, and he talked about the Highland cues of the Highlands in Scotland. Because he had a little stuffed cow. That was his show. So these are all opportunities to share life and tell stories about what we've done and where we've been, what we learned along the way, and to learn from one another. And I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of that practice. This last week, I've had a chance to go to two different art discovery type places. I went to the Academy of Motion Pictures Museum here in LA, which is just a testament to all of the filmmakers in the Academy. Some of them very different cultural backgrounds. We had everything from I'm not going to remember the names of these filmmakers, but I can see their movies. Casablanca, which I didn't realize was filmed, a lot of it in Morocco. And it's obviously a historical movie. It was made many years ago. To, Fellini, who's an Italian filmmaker. And the costume designer for, I can't now remember the name of the Academy Award-winning movie that she worked for, but she also worked on the movie Crazy Rich Asians, which then my friend and I watched because I hadn't seen it. And wow, what costumes there were. And what a great opportunity to get a peek at Singapore, which is a country I just had never seen. I don't think I've even seen pictures of it, but to see it in a film was really, really fun and exciting. So the fact that we can do that is such a gift. Let's see, Steve says, yes, the Highland cues. I bought them to be props in a show. I haven't done the show yet, but they've been props in several other shows in the meantime, so. I also went to Hearst Castle, which is basically a collection of mansions. A collection of mansions up the coast of California in San Simeon, California. And wow, what a huge project and undertaking that was to create. It gave a lot of people a lot of work for a lot of years, because it took them 28 years from the beginning of the architectural plans to basically when they stopped building. I think there are parts of Hearst Castle that are not totally finished. But you gotta stop somewhere. And really the astonishing thing about this place is that it houses collections from all these different European countries that were auctioned off basically after World War I, because, Europe was sort of the scene of many battles. So you can go out to the pool and see 17th century Roman pillars just, holding up part of your whatever that piece of architecture is out by the pool. Those are like real pillars from Rome, from a Roman temple or something like that, from hundreds of years ago. Okay, so now Steve is answering my question about the jams. He got gooseberry and elderflower jam from Stonehenge, and it wasn't very good. Raspberry and rose petal jam from Harrods. From Harrods was so much better. It was much better. You know, that is another thing about cultural influence, is that we get to adventure and taste and see what appeals to us. One of the classic examples is Vegemite. There are people who love Vegemite, but most people agree that it's gross. I've never tried it, so I don't have an opinion. So I've talked more about this than I meant to, but I want to touch on just some of the potential negatives of cultural influence and what we have seen throughout history, centuries of cultures colliding and civilizations overlapping, and sometimes colonialism coming in and just taking. That is a downside, a distinct downside. I think a lot of the religious background that I grew up with, we spent a lot of time trying to avoid cultural influence at all, which I later learned to realize is its own cultural influence. Because culture is just it exists. You can't escape it. Whatever people are around you, that is the culture that you're affected by and influenced by, which is why our tastes and our attitudes change periodically, because we're surrounded by different people and we have different information than we did 10, 20, 30 years ago. And sometimes those changes are welcomed. They're a welcome change and a shift in how we see the world and ourselves. And sometimes those overlaps generate conflict. So if you have felt some of the fallout from that type of influence, and all of the world has, really, I hope that this inspires us to hold all of our creativity and our influences with an open hand. I think it's more important to see people as we are than to be better or to one-up one another or to absorb one another or step on one another. And this is another conversation we're getting into with the world of AI and artificial intelligence generating art. Especially when that art has basically copied other artists, taken a bunch of people's work and mashed it into one thing without crediting the original artist. Let's not lose the importance of the human and the relationship and all of that overlap and influence in our quest to be justified. But let's share. Let's treat one another as we would want to be treated. I love it when people sing my songs, but if they did it without recognizing that I'm the one that wrote it, that would be hard. That would be hard. That would be unethical. So in the same way, I try to be really conscious of when I share someone else's music or someone else's work, how would I want my work to be shared? Especially in this digital age where it's so easy to just take something without giving any sort of reference to the person that it came from. So that's what this song is about. It's on a kind of a lower note, but I think it's important to recognize that we have feelings that go with some of these influences, and sometimes those feelings have to be worked through. Well, all the time those feelings have to be worked through, so I hope that this song helps work through any sense of indignation or hurt from when the relationship has been subverted in favor of someone getting what they want. Just have to remember how it starts. Now here we are, we've spoken our piece, we've drawn up the lines, we've taken up sides. It's never too early to swallow your pride, but when is it too late to cross a divide? And now here we are. And now here we are. We got what we want, but maybe there's more. Regret what is not. Wish we had done better. Can't help wonder what might one day have happened with a little more thought. And now here we are. And now here we are. Step by step we make our choices. Making memories, taking chances. Forward or back, this way or that, kiddo. Better or worse, there's no reverse. It's all in the past. And now here we are. We've drawn up the lines, we've all taken sides. It's never too easy to swallow your pride, and maybe it's too hard to bridge a divide. And now here we are. to believe that there's room for reconciliation. I don't know if that's true all the time. Just depending on how all the parties involved feel about a situation and what they're willing to do about it. But I think it's important to recognize that that also is an influence. That's a cultural influence, to recognize, hey, these cultures don't get along, or this culture has a history of behaving a certain way. And we get to decide what we do with that information. Whether we'll perpetuate that attitude or we'll make an effort to change. Those are the terms that I came to with my attitude towards culture and religion. Recognizing that they're not separate entities. That even religious people benefit from art that was created just by fellow humans experiencing the world with a different perspective. And I love hearing people's stories. So it's valuable to me to make friends of all of my historical, cultural influences. Because we're all coming at this world from a slightly different point of view. And I benefit from hearing someone else's story. And this is how we tell our stories, how we share our perspective of the world is through creating. So when I hear, or when I see, or when I watch someone else's story as depicted through art, even if it doesn't initially resonate with the way that I see the world, sometimes that's exactly what I need to see or watch or hear to get that bigger view of all that the world has to offer and all that is existing within it. And one of the big ways that has happened for me is television. I used to barely watch any TV at all growing up. And I love TV. I love TV shows. And actually this next song was inspired by a few different shows that I was watching when I wrote it. And some of the philosophies and ideologies embodied in those shows. It sounds kind of goofy because one of them is decidedly a comedy about a couple of con artists. And the other one is about a bank heist. But, you know, just hearing all the conversations and the plans that are made in those shows, it got my wheels turning. And so it turned into this song that I want to share with you now. But before I do that, I just want to thank Epiphany Space for having me today, for providing a place for this little podcast to be recorded and for me to play music live for you here. If you're an artist or you are friends with artists who could use more support on their creative journey, I hope you will check out epiphanyspace.com. It's been a wonderful, life-changing place for me for the last 10 years. To learn all I can know about love. Essays and interviews, podcasts and paper news, hand me down with but for you, I am a fool. Letting go was never so safe. I have done hundreds of projects and busied myself with the logic of life, and planning and dreaming, no one intervening. The course of my journey was mine. No one could tame me. Can anyone claim me? My rise and my fall affects just me mainly. Here I am playing this game built for one. No reason to make room for two. But then you disrupted my plans, disproved my hypotheses, turned my whole world upside down. Basically scribbled pink crayon all over my carefully blueprinted, ordered outlines. You made a mess of it all, and I couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier to be a fool. A fool. Letting go was never so safe. So I hope I have prompted you to consider some new things about cultural influence. And maybe take a look around you today, even just now, and see what do you have in your space. What is influencing you in terms of what you look at and what you listen to all the time? What kind of a culture does that identify with? Is it intentional? Is it just kind of what you see and what you get? And remember the stories that go along with each thing. I guarantee that it will spark that adventurous spirit that we all know you have. And just help you remember the adventures that you've already enjoyed in your life. I want to thank you for joining me today on this reflection about cultural influences and art discovery. I hope you'll come back next week and join me for a whole new show with new songs, new ideas, new prompts, new thoughts. And if you've enjoyed yourself here today, I hope you will give that little like button a tap. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. This all just helps people discover this show, and hopefully some music that will inspire and uplift them in the course of their daily adventures, which is what we're all here for today. Well, I'm very excited to announce that yesterday was the first rehearsal that I had for the Candlelight Messiah, which is a special little rendition of Handel's Messiah that I'm bringing to the world on May 13th. Tickets go on sale on April 1st, but if you are currently a Patreon subscriber, you can get your tickets now. Just go sign up at patreon.com/Cortney Matz. Have all sorts of perks for people who help me make music with their monthly contributions. And let me tell you, if just going by this very first rehearsal with the strings is any indication, this is going to be absolutely glorious. I'm so excited. Well, if you haven't yet, I want to give you one last invitation to come join us on Facebook. Facebook community is facebook.com/groups/adventurous spirits. And this is where we are sharing some of the more minute details of our adventurous experiences in life and planning some adventures together. And you would be more than welcome. Come and add your voice to the conversation. But meanwhile, I want to send you off to whatever this day has in store for you. I hope you will enjoy yourself, bring another friend along for the journey, and have a great time. See you next week.